Alright, hello everyone, welcome back. This is a new lecture in your course Mastering Ansible by Avionics. My name is Ahmed, and in this section we are integrating Vagrant with Ansible. We are going to bootstrap a test machine that we called it web server, and this test machine will already have Ansible attached to it. It is going to configure the machine the moment it starts by utilizing this my playbook.yml playbook, and as we have mentioned before, a playbook in Ansible is the file that is written in the YAML serialization language, and it follows the instructions that are written in this file in the YAML format to start actually configuring the server. In this file, just to refresh your memory, we had two tasks. The first one is to install HTTPD service if it is not already installed, and the second is to ensure that this service is up and running, to start it if it's stopped, and to ensure that it gets started every time the system boots. So now everything is in place. Let's go to our terminal, and we are inside Ansible-machines. All what I'm going to do now is that we are going to issue Vagrant up in order to boot up the web server machine. Now observe what's happening here. It's running provisioner Ansible, running Ansible-playbook. So now Ansible is running. As you can see here, it is typing in the name of the task, ensure that Apache Web Server is installed, and it's actually running this task on the machine. Okay, now Ansible has finished and the machine is bootstrapped. Let's have a look at the output that Ansible has written for us. Task, ensure that Apache Web Server is installed, change it web server. And this is the name of the machine or a group that Vagrant has used, and as we mentioned, it only has one machine, so it's web server. And also the task to ensure that service is running and persistent. This means that it's going to start the service if it has not started, and it will ensure that it gets started whenever the system boots. Play recap, this is the final statistics. OK 3, change it to unreachable 0. This means that if any of the servers were unreachable when the Ansible runs, it will state here that unreachable is 1 or 2 or 3 or 0 if none were unreachable, and failed 0. This means that everything ran correctly. Now let's double check that everything is really in order, so let's clear the screen and let's issue Vagrant SSH web server to log in inside the web server. Okay, now we need to ensure that HTTPD is installed. This can be done by actually running rpm-qa. Then you can grab on the package HTTPD. As you can see here, we have HTTPD tools, which is a helper package, and the HTTPD itself, which is the Apache Web Server 2.4.6-45, which is the latest version at the time of this recording, is installed, and it has been installed automatically when the machine bootstrapped, when the machine was created. Now let's have a look at systemctl status HTTPD, and as you can see here, it is started, it is active. And if you have a look at check config --list grep HTTPD, in our case, well, you are in CentOS 7, so I'll have to use systemctl is-enabled HTTPD. And yes, it is enabled. This means that it is going to be started as soon as the system boots. Congratulations, we have just used your first playbook on Ansible. But now I guess you might have an important question. What's wrong with a shell script? I could have just done the same thing using a shell script. I could have just logged into the server, or even from the outside of the machine. Let's log out, and I can use something like this: SSH-p2203, which is the port used by my local host to connect to the Vagrant machine, because as we said, it is on a netted network. And I can just run yum-y install HTTPD, and then I can run systemctl enable HTTPD. I could have just used that, right? That's okay, and you can sure use that to install HTTPD service and ensure that this service is up and running on system boot. And as a matter of fact, Vagrant supports shell scripts as a provisioning method, just like Ansible Puppet. If you have a look at the Vagrant file, you can see that at the end of this file, we have an example of how you can use a provisioning method, which is the shell. As you can see here, it's giving you just here an example: apt-get update, apt-get install -y apache 2. So you can use actually the shell as a form of provisioning inside the Vagrant file, and it's going to work the same way as Ansible. However, Ansible in particular and configuration management tools in general have, as we said, much more advantage over using shell scripts. And let's see a practical example. Now let's log into the server again. Let's clear the screen and Vagrant SSH web server. Now, as we have mentioned in the first part of this class, in the first section, which is that configuration management scripts or configuration management tools must be idempotent. And we said that idempotence means that if we run a command several times or once, it should produce the same result. This means that I must be sure that the HTTPD package is not installed before attempting to use yum or apt-get, if you are using Ubuntu, to install it again. You might argue, yes, that's easy, I can write a command like this. If not rpm-qa and grep HTTPD, which means that if HTTPD is not installed, and let's just direct the output to /dev/null so as not to clutter the screen, and I can say then and echo installing HTTPD. I'm just pretending that I'm installing HTTPD, so I could just replace this with yum-y install HTTPD. Okay, then fy and then fi. Okay, and because HTTPD is installed, this won't work. So what if I deinstalled HTTPD and use the same command again? Sudo, okay. If I use the same command again, it's not going to install it. Guess why? Let's run rpm-qa grep HTTPD. And although we have removed HTTPD package, one of its helper packages is still there, httpd-tools. And that's why this command is failing. That's why it's not installing HTTPD, because when it ran the grep command on HTTPD, it found that there is actually a package that has HTTPD in its name. So it considered that HTTPD package is installed, and accordingly it did not install HTTPD. Okay, you might argue that, okay, that is easy. We can just add grep HTTPD and then also grep -v HTTPD-tools. This will ensure that even if HTTPD-tools is installed, it will consider that Apache Web Server is not installed, and it will attempt to install it. As you can see here, installing HTTPD. It's going to use the yum command to install HTTPD. But look at the script. Look how long the command is, and look how hard it is to maintain. And imagine that you have more than one command, and imagine that you have more than one package that has this string HTTPD inside. Imagine that you have more than one server, and each one of them is having different packages. Perhaps one or two of them is using HTTPD in their name. So how can you write a generic script or a master script that should be run on each and every server or each and every host name in your list, and it's going to account for different packages that may or may not have the string HTTPD in its name, so that this grep command should not fail? So as you can see here, the script is starting to get more and more complex, and this is just only for one task. Imagine the rest of the tasks that you want to perform on the server. Imagine the one that is checking for whether or not the service is running, and if it's not running, to start it, and if it is already started, just ignore. You'll have to write if conditions everywhere on your script, and you have to heavily comment your script to be readable. Additionally, you will have to inform the user of what's happening. If you remember from, let's have a look here. If you remember from our Ansible one, Ansible was writing down the name of the task as it is doing this. So task, ensure that Apache Web Server is installed. This is the task that is being run. So perhaps you might want to do this. Echo installing HTTPD, then followed by yum-y install HTTPD, like this. So installing HTTPD, okay, I need to be root. So let's sudo -i, but just give you a real world example. Okay, so you will have to write installing HTTPD, and then it's going to give you the details of how yum is working. Maybe you want to hide this from the user. Maybe you just want the user to see the tasks that are running just as a list of items, and behind the scenes, yum is working to install the package. So as you can see here, using shell scripts is starting to get more and more complex, and this is only for simple tasks. When we get to more complex tasks and more complex templates, when you configure non-trivial packages on the system and having to deal with configuration files and so on and so forth, you're gonna see that shell scripts are not the best choice or not the best option when you are dealing with multiple servers, when you are dealing with complex scenarios. So I hope now you have seen how Ansible and configuration management tools are so powerful in automating your infrastructure when used in conjunction with other provisioning services like Vagrant to bootstrap machines on the fly with all prerequisites installed automatically when the machine boots and with the minimal code writing and also with the most human-readable format. In the coming sections, we are gonna delve more and more into Ansible, and we're gonna slowly dive deeper into more complex scenarios where Ansible is going to prove itself as one of the best configuration management tools that you can use in today's DevOps world. That brings us to the end of this lecture and to the end of this section in Mastering Ansible by Avionics. My name is Ahmed, and see you next.